Hi, I'm Nicole,
And I'm Ken.
and this is week 4 of Access.
Yes.
Which can only mean one thing. Numbers! It's the 4th book of the Bible. I like how it works, week 4, number 4.
And it's numbers.
Yeah, it works out kind of nicely. So, authorship of Numbers is the P School, like we talked about with the other books. Namely, Leviticus has a lot of P School in it, which is the priestly school. So, they're really concerned about priestly issues, setting up the priesthood, how you care for it, and
water it, let it grow.
You gotta put it out in the sun, quarter turn.
And you too can have a thriving priesthood.
We clearly don't get out in the sun very often. We're pale. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. But, and like the other books, Numbers was written many years after the actual events that are taking place. They think that Numbers was written in the 7th and 8th centuries, before the Common Era, so that's 700-800 years before Christ. Ish.
Big-ish.
Ish. And the interesting thing about Numbers, because it's sometimes people think it's kind of a dull book.
But it's...
Nothing could be further from
Exactly.
it. Yes.
It's our favorite.
No,
Leviticus.
It's my favorite. Leviticus is my favorite. I really like it.
They're all my favorites.
Pick one.
I know.
Okay. There's 14 different types of literature within Numbers. And I think that's really important to remember about the Bible, is that it's not one type of literature ever. That there's lots of different types and different rules and formulas that go on with it. Just like poetry is not the same thing as a biography now, it's not the same thing then either. And Leviticus actually has the most types of literature of any book in the Bible.
What would you pay for 14 types of literature?
$34?
$30?
Well, my Bible costs $12.95, and I'm very happy with it. Or you can get it for free on the internet.
Exactly. Or you could watch an introduction.
Oh!
Like this.
Also
for how much? For free!
For free. It's a good time. And the context of the book is the wilderness. They're still there, people. They're there for 40 years. Give or take. That's also kind of a symbolic number.
Yeah.
They're actually there longer, I think.
But 40 years is the...
Is the traditional. The numbers mean very specific things. So pay attention to numbers in the Bible. They come up.
And then Jesus later will be in the wilderness, the desert, for 40 days. It's like the mini version.
Yeah, so there's echoes throughout the New Testament, which is always really nice. And so it's really a continuation of Leviticus in a lot of ways. Same context, same kind of authorship. And we're going to go over to Ken for the themes.
You bet. The major theme when you are reading the book of Numbers is the faithlessness, the utter faithlessness of the Hebrew people. Numbers is often structurally divided right down the middle. And you have the first generation, which is the generation of rebellion. And then the second generation later that is much more pliable. They're like us. They're the youngsters, the young generation. They're the good guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
so. The first generation, almost every single story that we have is rebellion after rebellion after rebellion. Some are petty. So you got Miriam and Aaron who say things like, "Why does Moses get to be the special one, the leader? Aren't we all special in God's sight?" And Miriam is stricken with leprosy. Not so good. There's the Korah, the Korahite rebellion a few chapters later. And then there's instance after instance of the Israelites grumbling about, why did you take us, this is one of my favorite lines, why did you take us from the flesh pots of Egypt to die in the wilderness? Were there not graves in Egypt? That's great.
It always reminds me of, like, kids in the backseat
Yes.
of the car being like, "Oh, this is taking forever. Are
there
we
not
there
cactuses
yet?"
at home? Like,
Yeah.
do we have to drive out to Sisters? We have scrubby landscape at home, Dad. Yeah. But one of the great things about the Bible is this is not a book for heroes.
No.
This is not a book about heroes.
No.
You know, what would I expect in a religious book? I would expect this fantastic book of beautiful people, heroes that I want to be like, moral exemplars,
Yeah.
right? That I can teach my children, you know, be like this and do this. That is not what we get in most of the Bible.
I can barely think of anyone I would actually like to be like.
And the Israelites here exemplify that,
Mm-hmm.
where it's story after story of us not being at our best, but being real.
Mm-hmm.
And God continuing to be faithful in the midst of our faithlessness. And there's this overarching theme that we see again and again in the Bible. We may not believe in God, we may have a hard time following, but God never stops believing in us.
Mm-hmm.
May send snakes, which we'll talk about that, which is troubling, and I don't mean to make light of that. But overall, God continues to pursue and come after. And not because of our worthiness or goodness, but even in the midst of our stubbornness.
It goes back to that covenant
Yes.
relationship that we've talked about in previous videos, and we'll talk about more coming up.
So that's the overarching theme that I want you to think about with Numbers. 3 stories we're going to look at. Nicole's going to tell us about the Aaronic benediction, not the ironic benediction.
But of Aaron. Aaron is the first priest. He is Moses' brother, as we might remember, as depicted by Jack Sparrow.
Yarr! Ye scurvy dog!
Aaron is kind of wily
Exactly.
and pops up in strange places, much like
Jack Sparrow. Trademark Disney.
Don't steal it. But in chapter 6 is the Aaronic blessing. And we say this every week.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday in church.
With the birthday chicken.
With the birthday chicken. Now, for those people who don't attend Tualatin Presbyterian, this little vignette
Explain the birthday chicken.
isn't going to make a lot of sense. There is no explanation for it.
Okay.
I'm new. I don't get it.
What we do is, and this is a tradition that, to my knowledge, goes back to the actual founding of the congregation in the Krulls' living room. But if you've had a birthday in the previous week, you come forward and you put money into a wicker chicken. This must be seen to be appreciated. And all that money goes to Heifer Project. But then after that, there's a line of people. The pastor or the liturgist then will place the hands on the head of Aaron, and then we'll say the Aaronic benediction. May the Lord bless and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you.